This meeting is being recorded.
TJ. Oh, wait, that's you. He's here. Okay. Yay. Now we can get started. Okay. So what we're going to go over today is how to maximize your enrollment. Okay. But before I get started with this, because this is a very important piece, if you don't maximize the opportunity you have in front of you, you're leaving a lot of AP on the table. The bottom line of what we do is helping people. So if you're not maximizing your enrollment, like, you're really not fully helping as many people as you possibly can. Okay? So that's kind of the goal of what we're going to cover today. I do have all the essays in this meeting and I have all the ADs. So I'm going to kind of put the baseline out there, and then I would like feedback of things that they implement too to try to maximize enrollments. And then I want to just talk about some issues. I think that part of this is going to bring up some issues I think that we are doing, but we just don't have any inspection or accountability on it. So, but we need to inspect and hold ourselves accountable to maximize these enrollments. So hopefully by going over this, we're kind of laying that base foundation to make sure that, again, we're helping as many people as we possibly can. That's why we're in this business, but also, you're not leaving annual premium on the table, which, that's your guys' livelihood, right? Okay, so that's the purpose of this meeting. So please take notes. But before I go over that, on Friday, I did a training session that we did record, so we have it on video, of when you get done with an enrollment, the what comes next form, the client feedback form, and then delivering a blue book. Okay, that's what that training session. If you missed it, we have it recorded. I know thank you very much, Diana, sending it out to the ADs, but I forwarded it off to my team because I had some people missing. But, anybody in KC, if you guys were missing, if you want to make sure you just take some time to watch that video, because the whole point of that training was, like, you can write all the AP in the world, but if those deductions don't start on time, and that whole training session is about being proactive, so you're not dealing with issues as far as billing issues or missing a policy or the deduction starting late or not starting at all, those types of things. So that's what that training session was on. So with it being Monday, today is a preparation day to make sure we have everything that we need to be successful in the field. Make sure you guys have on hand what comes next forms and client feedback forms. Because the biggest thing with that client feedback form, guys, is it kind of forces you to remember to ask for referrals. And if you want to make your job easier, I know we work really hard qualifying businesses, and you guys are out there like closing cases left and right. Like, you have a relationship with these people, and if you do a good job with one business, they're going to refer you to other businesses. So in that video, I went over some verbiage of how to ask for referrals. You can kind of take that and then run with it. Okay, so just make sure if you missed that video or the training session on Friday, that you get that video and you make sure you watch it. Okay, so let's talk about maximizing enrollment. So we went over a couple weeks ago, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I believe it was Derek and Terry ran the training on how to set up an enrollment. Really, that's where this starts, is setting up the enrollment. So I'm going to highlight some things to start there, and then it's going to flow into like when you're actually at the enrollment. But what I want to start with is on your Section 125 paperwork, okay? One of the first things we do is this checklist, right? You get your enrollment date, then you go through this checklist. And number 3 at the bottom is compliance, okay? And what it says is, our goal is to make sure your plan stays in compliance with Section 125 guidelines. Your plan stays in compliance when you ensure that all employees have an opportunity to participate in benefits, okay? So I think the huge thing that I think we lose opportunity on, especially for re-enrollments, is, when you're at an enrollment, if you don't get that employee list, do you really know if you're seeing everybody or not? And it's really easy to get lazy with that, okay? So if you're going to bullet point this, I want you to write down, make sure you have an updated employee list with hire dates at every single enrollment, whether it's obviously you have to have it for a new enrollment because that's part of your Section 125 paperwork. But for re-enrollments, you have to have that list, guys, because you have to know who works there. right? And everybody on that list, it's your responsibility as the representative to make sure that you see everybody there. Okay. Now I totally get that there's, there's going to be situations with some enrollments where they're like, I refuse to make this mandatory, those types of things. Okay. That's going to be part of what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to specifically just aim everything at that. If you do these things, it'll kind of work itself out. And even if you don't see everybody, which is really our responsibility to see everybody, it'll help improve your chances to see everybody, right? Okay. So first thing is you want to make sure you have that updated employee list with hire dates, okay, before you start your enrollment, okay? The other thing is, it is our responsibility that it stays in compliance with Section 125, which means that we've got to get this information out to everybody. So to back up, let's start with setting up that enrollment. When you make that phone call, like if it is a phone, I'm talking about re-enrollments, okay? Let's say it's a phone call or you're doing it in person. Make sure that part of your conversation, you should always start it, and hopefully if you've been trained on these, you start it as a customer service call. You want to make sure, if there's any billing issues, they've had trouble getting a hold of a representative, they have any issues with claims, us as a representative and the local office, we got to take care of that stuff first before we're even worrying about enrolling, right? So when you're setting up those enrollments, you want to start that conversation with customer service first, okay? Let them tell you if there's any issues. Hopefully it's smooth sailing, right? And there's no issues, but I'm just saying, get that identified first, okay? Fix their billing issues, claim issue, whatever the case may be, okay? But once you are ready to transition into booking that enrollment, make sure part of that conversation is, it's our goal to make sure that you stay in compliance with Section 125. And if you want to put this in parentheses, use this quote, per Section 125 guidelines. Okay. Go ahead and put that in quotes and write that down. Per Section 125 guidelines, it's our responsibility to make sure that we do at least get this information to everybody, because everybody's entitled to those two benefits provided at no cost. So we want to make sure they at least enroll in those. And you can take the pressure off, like by all means, if somebody doesn't want to enroll in benefits, that's fine, and any other benefits, but they're entitled to these benefits. So per Section 125 guidelines, we want to make sure that we do see everybody to at least enroll them into those two benefits that they're entitled to. Okay. So not to go into left field, but did anybody hear me say free? Did anybody even hear me say, I might have said no cost, right? But it's not like the emphasis is on like, hey, free, no cost, we've got these free, no cost benefits for the employees. No, what you want to really emphasize is these are benefits they're entitled to, right? And everybody wants things that they're entitled to. Let's be honest. That's kind of our society nowadays, right? So if you use that to your advantage, it's going to help set up so you can maximize that enrollment. So even if, you have a business owner and they're like, well, so-and-so doesn't want to come see you. Are you sure that, and are you confident that that person does not want the benefits that they're entitled to through work here? There's two of them, and we just have to see them to make sure that they get enrolled in those two benefits at the very least. But by all means, if they don't want to enroll, we just want to make sure we get a signature on file, okay? So I know I'm kind of leading into things, but step one is make sure in your conversation you say per Section 125 guidelines, okay, when you're setting up that enrollment. Second thing, to keep you in compliance, we manage it. We'll make sure we get this information to everybody so nobody feels discriminated against. I just need an updated employee list just to make sure, if there has been changes with anybody being hired, I just want to make sure, I mark them off as I go. Well, I refuse to make this mandatory, like not everybody's going to come see you. Last year, nobody was interested, if you get any of that, like that's just take the pressure off of it, guys. That's completely fine. I just want to make sure I have their signature on file, and that just helps protect you guys as a business. But it also keeps you in compliance with Section 125. And this is a true story. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys a story of why we want to make sure we take our job very, very serious. This happened to me. Okay, so a very, very real situation. I had one of my franchises that a gentleman, he had our accident protector max and he signed up for our no cost benefits for 2 years in a row. I came up for open enrollment. He wanted to cancel his accident protector max, and he did not want to see me to renew his 2 no cost benefits. Okay. Real story. I was there at the enrollment. Luckily, the owner was sitting there and knew that he did not come see me. So luckily I had that worked to my advantage. But left there, and it was about a week later, this gentleman died in a motorcycle accident. Like, this is a true story. Okay. Diana knows the story. So no, the electric company, Goheen Electric. So anyways, died in a motorcycle accident. Franchise calls me, and even the business owner, she goes, I know he didn't want to see you, but I figured I'd at least ask, are we sure he didn't have that accidental death benefit? I knew she was aware he had canceled his accident protector max. So she's like, so I look in Epic, and Epic says it's active. Okay. Because Epic is about 10 days late. Okay. Now I shot myself in the foot, but the point being, it was active, and I don't need to go into a really long story, but said it was active. I said, well, hey, the one from last year is still showing active. I don't think there's anything wrong with us at least trying to put a claim through. My heart is in a good place. Like, I'm all about helping the family. I'm like, let's just at least put the claim through. Well, the business owner relayed that information to the wife. The wife puts the claim through. The claim gets denied because it did end up terminating the time frame, and it was like literally a week later. The wife calls me up, very upset, which is completely understandable. And her thought process was, why did you have me relive like putting this claim through, because it's been so devastating on me, like losing my husband in a motorcycle accident, then to get this decline letter. It has been a horrible thing. Like, how dare I, all this terrible stuff. Luckily, I was able to talk to her, because I told her, I was like, my intentions were meant to be good. Like, I saw it still said active. I was like, why not like put it through? And she verbatim says to me, she goes, I just don't understand. If that was a benefit that the company provided at no cost, why wouldn't he come see you? Why wouldn't he come see you? And that rings in my head, right? So that's a real story. Now, mind you, like, we worked it out, and everything's fine, because I did tell her, I'm like, my heart's in a good place. Like, this was how my point of view is, like, it showed active still, because the time frame before it officially lapsed, I didn't think it would hurt to put a claim. There was, what if it did pay? So I talked to her about it, and we worked it out. But the point being is, we've got to take our job seriously, because that was one that burned me. And it's like, I'm in this business for the right reasons, like, and I know that, but like, obviously those things are devastating for people. So, and the wife, there's nothing wrong with that, right? If something's provided through a company at completely no cost, why wouldn't an employee do it, right? Yes, they get busy. Yes, some people want to like poo-poo on it and like think it's like not that big of a deal and all these things. But when somebody passes away accidentally and they could have gotten an extra $3,000, like $3,000 does mean something. It does. Okay. Whether that's to replace a paycheck or 2 or 3 or how, a month of income, whatever the case may be, every little bit helps. But I think us as representatives, like, we need to do a really good job making sure that we either have signatures on file and or, just making sure we have that employee list and we're managing that, because this is something I don't think we talk about enough. We're kind of like, okay, you do this enrollment, you do that enrollment. Okay, how much AP did that enrollment produce? And then we kind of move on, right? First, like, drilling down of like, okay, did you have an employee list? Did you actually see everybody? So this is kind of the subject line of what I want to talk about, is like, you want to set it up so you can see everybody. And it's just that conversation with whoever's communicating to the employees. So to back up again, when you're setting up that enrollment, you want to make sure you use that verbiage per Section 125 guidelines. And when I get there, or if you want to send it to me ahead of time, I just need an updated employee list. I'm going to manage it for you, making sure that I at least mark everybody off, and you have on file, who has been seen and who hasn't been seen, and that'll keep you in compliance. Because even, guys like, you know, the one, again, this is like worst case scenario. I refuse to make it mandatory, blah, 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 blah. You can at least mark and send that to them saying like, hey, only 5 people were willing to at least have a signature on file. Then it's on you that all these other people are not enrolled into this benefit. And you don't say that, right? But that way you have documentation. So when you, God forbid, ever get that call of like so-and-so passed away in an accident, you can pull up that email that you forwarded them saying like, well, Jackie Smith never came and saw me type thing. Okay. So it helps protect you, but it also helps protect the business. Okay. But to go back to like best case scenario, right? They give you that employee list. Now you have something to go off of to make sure you actually see everybody. Okay. And then a big point of what I want to say is like when you guys leave there, because I enroll every single week, so I know how it is. You go to an enrollment. Well, this person's absent. This person's absent. This person had to leave early. This person, you know, whatever the case may be. So there's like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes maybe even 10. You know, even if it is 3 people, if it's 2 people, it's our job as the representing agent not to let those people slip through the cracks, right? So you want to talk about maximizing enrollment. The biggest thing I want you to write down is make sure you see every single one of those employees. Okay?
Right.
As much as you possibly can. Now, when you've exhausted all the options, you know, and like for whatever reason they refuse to come see you, blah, 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 right? You know, you at least have marked and signatures for everybody who did come. Okay. Because again, that helps keep you in compliance. But it starts with that conversation of setting it up. The second thing to maximize is making sure those employees get notified ahead of time. Okay. Because if they don't even know that you were coming that day, right, you should really never be at an enrollment and an employee be like, well, I didn't even know you were coming. Me, whenever I hear that, I'm like, okay, I got to do a better job setting up enrollments. Because you should really never see that, hear that. So you call, you know, you're setting up that enrollment, you have your date and time. It should be a conversation of like, okay, and it's in these, I'm speaking to your guys' new cases too. You guys close a case, have that conversation about, you know, we want to make sure your employees are aware we're coming that day ahead of time. Okay, so how can we notify them? And the best way, guys, is getting an employee announcement flyer in their paycheck stubs. And most people don't have pay checks per se, but a lot of times they'll have pay stubs. So as long as you ask them, and then you also have to think like, okay, if my enrollment's next week, will they have a pay stub by that time? So just have that conversation with when you're booking it. Now I want to make sure the employees are aware I'm coming. Oh, we're missing their pay stubs. How can we notify everybody? Can we get an email out to everybody? Are you going to be forwarding an email from me? If I send you a flyer, just make sure there's a solid plan, because then you know everybody, you know, has that information, okay, to come see you that day. So, okay, so now we're going to talk about, so that's setting up the enrollment, okay, making sure you use that verbiage per Section 125 guidelines. We've got to make sure we at least get the information. And then you can say over the phone, guys, too, and or when you first get to that enrollment, you want to say, we want to make sure we mark off everybody that we've seen. And not only does it protect us, but it protects you guys as a business. Because God forbid somebody passes away in an accident and that beneficiary finds out that this was a benefit they were entitled to and they didn't have an opportunity to enroll. You don't want anybody to come back feeling like they're discriminated against. So it just helps protect you. Again, we'll manage it all for you, you know, no more work on them, it's us. But it gives you all those reasons why. And as long as I talked to my team about starting with why, give them a reason why you need an employee list. And, you know, if that's crystal clear, you're not going to get any pushback on getting it. Okay. But you get to that enrollment when you first get there. It shouldn't be where they just stick you in a room and you don't have your employee list or, you know, those kind of things. When you first get there, whoever your contact is, if you have time, you want to start building some rapport. Okay. You want to make sure your relationship is good. And it's just, you know, it doesn't matter if you're getting there at 6 a.m., 7. I mean, I know it's early. We got our coffee and we're like, oh God, it's a long day. got 3 shifts. But you show up, you have a smile on your face, and it's all about making it an enjoyable experience for everybody in that business. Because I'll tell you guys this, like if it's, especially if it's a house account, I mean, all enrollments, but house accounts or, you know, your AD's accounts that they're saying like, hey, I want you to, you know, work on this enrollment this year. It's everybody's job to make sure that relationship improves, not decreases. Does that make sense? Okay. You always want to make sure that when you're there, that it's better off that you showed up there. And I get, hey, AP is the end result. That's what we want. But in my mind, AP is kind of the effect of what happens if you go in very, very super positive and you make it an enjoyable experience for everybody. That's the goal of an enrollment. Okay. And I kind of touched on this on Friday, but I want to change our mindset because this quote is real. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're both correct, right? You probably heard that quote. I forget who said it. Am I messing it up? No. It's close. Okay. You guys have heard that quote before? Whether you think you can or you think you can't is both correct. You want to Google it? I forget who said it. It's a very famous quote. Anyways. But the point being is if you go into an enrollment and you think it's going to go badly, what ends up happening is for some reason it'll go badly. Okay. Henry Ford. Okay. Okay. If you think that, oh man, this is the 4th re-enrollment here and I've tapped it out, like there is no more AP on the table. If you go into an enrollment believing that, guess what ends up happening? That usually ends up happening. And I don't want to go over like story after story after story after story, but all I'm going to tell you is my mentors in this business told me, and this is a golden rule in this business, and it's so very true. And I have example after example of how it solidifies that it's true. And the people who are the strongest at knowing this golden rule and abide by it and correcting oneself does the best in this business. And that's you can't prejudge a situation. Okay. And that is a golden rule. You got to catch yourself. It's like you'll be out there prospecting and you'll be like, oh, mechanic shops. Every time I go into a mechanic shop, that they're so rude to me. And you go into the mechanic shop and they're rude to you. Okay. Versus like just go in, like every opportunity. We have plenty of mechanic shops that we do fantastic with, or doctor's offices or school districts, and they do really, really well. You know, you can't stereotype and prejudge anything. You got to correct yourself. Same thing with enrollments. Like, oh, you know, I'm looking at the management report. Looks like so-and-so didn't write anything last year. This must not be a good enrollment. We're not going to write anything on it this year. You tell yourself that, guys. And a lot of it's just mindset. Because I'll tell you, any opportunity, if I'm like, hey, you know, I'd like you to take over this account and work on it, I'm like, hell yeah, because they're going to get me. I'm going to make sure that I do my very best. And I don't care what Agent A did last year or 2 years ago or, you know, whatever. I'm just going to go in and make it the best experience for these people. And hey, like view it as the glass half full of, you know, like there's plenty of opportunity out there. You don't know if somebody got married, has a baby. And then and I went off in a tangent, but the point of this being is I want to get us away from the mindset of like, okay, you close a case, it's going to write so much business the first time of that first enrollment. Then the next year you come back, you write half. The next year you write half. Because I feel like if we believe that, that's what ends up happening. When I have case after case after case, i.e. Jersey County, i.e. so many examples of I've closed businesses and municipalities and they've gone terrible the first year, but I just started getting my personality out there and building that trust and likability with the different departments. And you start planting the seed, and then you come back that next year, all of a sudden the trust goes through the roof. Because the ones that don't go well the first time, guys, it's because they have more than likely probably had a bad experience with a different company or a representative or something else. That's not you, right? So if you go in and you're just creating that likability and trust, you know, and you make it an enjoyable experience, you come back that next year, if they've been burned of like, oh, we've had representative after representative year after year after year, and they're all don't answer my phone calls, they, you know, don't put claims through for me or whatever, like be that difference maker, be that person, because there's plenty of representatives who are fantastic in this business. And that should be you, right? Like your name, trustworthiness, your hold yourself accountable to like getting back to people and all of that. You know, if you believe in yourself, like you go and you create that when you're there. So to be honest, every time that you have an account, if you go in and you're planting those seeds, the harvest will come, whether it's that enrollment, and even if it doesn't go as planned and you just write one accident plan, whatever the case may be, you should want to go back there that next year and then write even more. And I'm telling you, sometimes that's how the accounts get built up. So the bottom line is if you make it a good experience, you make it fun, which I'm going to give you guys some ideas, it should get better and better and better. Okay. So just wanted to kind of cover that mindset. Anything I'm missing? ADs? Just reiterate. Can you guys hear Diana, Casey?
Nope.
No, okay. She just said in the email she sends out when she sets up the enrollment, in there as well, she has a paragraph. It's a paragraph, right? That's like you know, a reminder of like per section 125 guidelines, blah 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 blah, and it basically says what you say in the phone call to reiterate the idea of like, you know, if you're not making this mandatory, it should be strongly encouraged to come see, make sure that you get the benefits you're entitled to keep you in compliance. And it's like a paragraph. So like Tommy or like the ADs, if you guys want, you know, she could forward you an email, but it helps.
Like, hey, how's it going? You're so fired. You want to reiterate it. They see the writing and others.
Yep.
So,
What are we talking about after this?
the whole point of what I was just saying too, like the end kind of recap is like, you want to make sure you see everybody. Okay. And then again, when you leave there, if there's anybody missing, okay, one or two things: you either create a follow-up day for yourself to get the last 4 people or 3 people, and or you get their phone numbers to make sure that you reach out to them virtually. Because I'm going to tell you guys, even if you go and you know, I'm saying worst case scenario, let's say it doesn't go as planned, whatever the case may be, those 3 or 4 people could get you to bonus. You know, like those could be, you know, all of them. So it's our job to make sure we see everybody. But I feel like if we aren't managing that correctly, you know, there's 3, 4 people here, 4 or 5 people here, 2 people here, all of a sudden that's a franchise in itself that nobody even had a chance to enroll, right? So again, that's AP left on the table, okay? So, okay, you show up at your enrollment, okay? We set it all up, build rapport with that contact person, make them a cheerleader. And all it is you walk in 6 in the morning, it doesn't matter, smile on your face. You know, and just like you build rapport with the DM, build rapport with them, okay? You know, hey, how are you doing? How was your weekend? Did you have a good Mother's Day? So how long have you worked here? You know, like start getting in a conversation with them and to try to get to know them. That's going to separate you from all the other representatives. You know, just create that little bit of likability, because if they like you, they'll help you out. Okay. And I say all of that is because you have your employee list. Now, if you run into a dead time where people aren't coming to see you, you can go to your contact, and if they like you, they're going to help you out. Okay. But if it's cold and standoffish, and then now you're asking, not only are you going to feel awkward about it, but then they're going to be like, God, this is just more work for me. Right. And then that's the atmosphere of your enrollment. Right. So build rapport as soon as you get there. Okay. Likability. And usually, I'm just going to tell you how it is. Usually you come there and they'll try to walk you back into a break room and be like, see you later. Okay. But no, no, like I try to keep the conversation going. I ask questions like, how long have you worked here? Oh, are you family? Like, did you know the owners before, you know, working here? If you can tie it to that, that'll kind of help get your conversation started, you know? And Jamie, do you remember I had said on the phone call that I just need to know who works here so I can mark them off just to keep you guys in compliance. That's part of my job to do today. So I'll mark off the employees that I need to see as I see them. Do you have that list ready for me? You know, ask it right then and there. And then another note is go ahead and get their Wi-Fi, because that'll give you some more things to talk about. You know, like, oh, you know, do you mind, so I can have your Wi-Fi password just in case I need to connect. I don't really necessarily need it, but you know, it does help if you have that. So get their Wi-Fi password. But the main thing is just make sure you get that list right up front. And then you just have to ask them, you know, is there employees you want to see first? You know, my goal is to not interfere with anything you guys have business-wise. Is there a certain order you want me to go in? You know, try to get feedback there, okay? Because what you want to get away from, and again, this is to help maximize it, you want to create a conversation of like, how do I get this going? Like, how do I start getting people to come see me, right? Because once you get that going, it's a lot easier. Don't let that contact person dictate how that's going to go. They don't know. You know, you be in that driver's seat, you know, take the control of like, okay, you know, who needs to be seen? Is there a special order? I don't want to take it away from anything you guys have business-wise that you want me to go in. And then they'll just tell you. And then you'll have a better idea how that day is going to go. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so now employees are coming to see you, okay? Again, the whole thing is you want to make it an enjoyable experience. So make sure, you know, you're building a little bit of rapport. Yes, you got to keep it moving, right? You can't spend a half an hour with every single employee, but get to know them a little bit, you know, because I'll tell you, coming back to certain re-enrollments, like I can remember certain people and just those little things you remember about them make all the difference, especially with trust. So just get to know them a little bit, but not only that, people will tell you exactly how we can help them with benefits if you can get them talking a little bit and comfortable, okay? But I want you to write this part down, okay? After you get done enrolling somebody, what you don't want to do is say, okay, you're all set, Jamie, see you later, okay? That's not what you want to do. What you want to say is like, okay, Jamie, I got you all set. Well, I actually have to see everybody today because I need to make sure that I get everybody enrolled in those 2 benefits through the company. Could you go grab somebody on my list for me? And then you show them the list, and before they leave, they're going to tell you who they're going to go grab. That's how you keep that flow of the enrollment going. Okay? Because too many times, like somebody leaves and then you don't see anybody for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, right? And then that's slowly but surely, then you've got these longer and longer gaps of not seeing employees. After you get done with one person, have them look at your list and they'll go grab the next person. Okay. Very, very, very important that you flow it that way. Okay. I was gonna ask this. Okay, this part. So let's say you're sitting there enrolling, okay? There really should not be times where you're sitting at a desk or like waiting for people to come and you're not seeing somebody for long periods of time. That should never, never, never happen. All right. So let me kind of go into my next little thing I want you to go over with you guys, okay? If people are not coming to see you, it's our job to get up, go out, and try to build that relationship, okay? You should never just sit in a room waiting and an hour goes by, nobody comes sees you. 2 hours goes by, nobody comes sees you. Lunchtime goes by and nobody's seeing you. That should never, 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 never happen, okay? Now, do you have 10-minute breaks here or there? Sure, right? Okay, but you set this up, they know you're there. They know that people are supposed to come see you, right? If you set it up properly. So just go to your contact person, right? If nobody's coming, you get up. If you see people in the hallway, like, hey, I'm Amanda with Liberty National. I'm here today. because you guys are entitled to some benefits. This is kind of your open enrollment. We have some updates to go over with you. Have you come to see me yet? And of course, you probably already know the answer. Oh no, do you have a couple minutes? You know, pull them in, right? But be vocal, okay? Have you had a couple minutes to come, make sure you're enrolled in the benefits that you're entitled to? It'll only take a couple minutes. Do you have time now? Oh no, you don't have time now? Okay, when is a better time today? Okay, yeah, just come back at 1 o'clock, no problem. You know, if you see people in the hallway, whatever the case may be, let's say, okay, let me back up. Go to your contact person, be like, hey, you know, I've been back there. It's been about half an hour. I just wanted to kind of get the flow going again. You know, I saw some people back to back, but Jamie said he was going to go get Ashley, but I haven't seen her yet. Do you mind helping me out? Get it going again? I'm usually having people just switch each other out. And if you built that little bit of rapport in the beginning, when you first get there, guys, one, that should not be awkward. And two, they're going to like you. So they'll just get up and be like, oh yeah, here, let me help you out. Johnny, you got to come see her. It's your turn, blah, 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 blah. And then boom, you got an employee in front of you. You get done enrolling. Okay, Johnny, you're all set. I got to see everybody here today because everybody's entitled to those 2 benefits. Could you take a look at my list? And do you work with any of these that you could go grab them for me? And then if you keep that flow going, they're going to switch each other out. And then that's how you get through everybody. Okay. Okay, now I'm gonna go over a couple things with damage control. Okay, so let's say you're ever at an enrollment and again, an hour goes by, you haven't seen anyone, you go talk to your contact and you're like, hey, can we get the flow going again? Okay, you see somebody and then you're like, okay, will you look at my list and go grab Ashley? Ashley never comes, you're sitting there again, right? And in your mind, you're like, man, what's going on? Like they keep saying people are going to come see me and they're not coming and see, you know, sometimes I'm just going over worst case scenarios. Okay. It's okay. Like, especially if it's lunchtime, guys, you know, like go talk to your contact person, be like, hey, I just wanted to just check in customer service wise. Is everything okay? Like, because I'm having a real hard time getting the flow going of like the employees switching. Cause you know, everybody was aware I was coming today, right? You know, did something happen? You want to ask them, did something happen? So you should never leave an enrollment being like, well, man, that didn't go as planned. And man, the energy felt way off. Man, people weren't really feeling me, you know, all this stuff. And you have no idea why it just went south. Okay. If you don't know why, just ask. And if anything, again, usually it's just a customer service thing, but you want them to lay it out for you so you can fix it. And that's probably, you know, the bottom line is probably somebody has just never even asked, you know, like what happened? And maybe there's an underlying claim issue. Well, Johnny Sue had this accident planned last year and broke his leg and no claim had ever been. Well, my goodness, that's what I'm here for. Let me get with Johnny about it, you know, and let me help him. You know, if you get that accident claim to pay out, all of a sudden you're going to be their favorite person. Okay, so to me, that's opportunity. I'm like, all right, this was going south because of a bad claim issue. Sounds easy enough. Just got to get the claim going. And then all of a sudden now I've got that likability, right? So again, you're not seeing people ask, be like, hey, do you mind me? And it's just out of, you know, your intentions are good, right? You're just wondering, you know, like, is something off? Like, did something happen? You know, I'm just want to make sure everything's okay, customer service with you guys. And then just let them tell you. Okay, very, 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 very important. Let's say you have that conversation and then you're still supposed to be there the rest of the day and it's still slow. Lunchtime comes around. Again, it's all about relationship building and just leaving that franchise better off that you went there. Okay, because it can get better and better and better and better. Absolutely. So lunchtime, you know, if you haven't seen anybody, just go out, talk to your contact person and be like, hey, you know, I know it's lunchtime and I've hit a kind of a little bit of a lull. I'm not seeing many employees. You know, I'm going to go get some coffee. What do you want from Starbucks? Or what do you want from, can I get you a drink? You know, you want a Dr. Pepper? I see you were drinking Coke or Sprite or whatever. Like, I'm going to go. And then anybody in the office that you see there, like get a drink order and then just go get them a drink. Or say, you know, hey, it's lunchtime, you know, hey, I'm going to go get something to eat. But I'm going to pick you guys up some cookies. You guys have like a favorite kind of dessert that you like? Just that olive branch. of like, hey, I'm creating that likability. Especially if you have the time and you're not seeing people, all those little gestures is gonna help with your rapport, it's gonna help with your likability. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that all the time, okay? But those little things, like again, especially the ones that you're working for your AD or the house accounts that you don't know that relationship, again, make it better off that you were there than not there. Okay. Anything you guys want to add? AD?
This job ain't that different. Should be used to it.
We were still on work for 2 years later. So everything under contract already. For this year, so.
Yeah, we can. So Diana was saying,
Finding anything else.
when you're putting the enrollment in the Google Calendar.
With your, you don't have your number yet, your employee number.
You know, they shipped their thing off to the wrong places.
That's cool.
They sent tax stuff to the wrong people and my finger
All right.
off to the wrong.
So what Diana's saying is,
I don't know. Probably back there and check.
Huh?
Yeah, that's
For
good.
residents, yes, they have to. Oh, really?
Probably just I do the same thing whenever I got my hazmat, for all the drugs.
Yeah, we didn't have to do that. So for Missouri residents, you don't have to do that. And then when you get your non-resident license in Kansas or Illinois, they don't make you do it.
And they said if you leave out, and that guy's fingerprints. I think I know that name. The damn rhino rule. Sounds shady.
I've had so many background checks this year, it's not even funny.
This is the first time in like 25 years I've been drug tested already.
Drug tested.
Well, everything.
tested?
Yeah, what was the drug test?
Oh, I thought
You
you meant
work
like
on
you
equipment. They drug tested.
thought you got drug tested here. I was gonna say, Tony's probably the most fucked up person. Who? Tony.
Well, he didn't have to drug test himself.
Right, got all blew it out. I forgot we're not on.
They're like, no, you can only come at 2:30. Employee presentation. Nobody's gonna know that, all right?
right. Yeah, so for Casey, we're just going over when you book that enrollment, you put it into Google Calendar. By the way, you should put your initials too. So put your initials dash enrollment at ABC company, and then in the notes, put who you spoke to, who you booked it with, the franchise number, how many employees, any information like, we said we were bringing donuts if you did say that, okay? Again, you don't have to do that on every single one. I'm just like using it as an example. But also like if you find out that you have 45 employees, but they want you to get there at 2:30 for the end of the day, everybody leaves by 3:30, that's not happening. Right? So, and it's okay to like start the conversation out, but once you find that out, be like, okay, either you need multiple reps, like bring the whole entire team and get everybody done in an hour, or like set it up on that phone call to come multiple days. Okay, like we'll come this first day, see how many we can get through, and then we'll come the follow-up day and make sure there's a plan. But you can put that all in the Google Calendar notes, so that way, like Gary, if you're booking it, you put all those notes in there, and then Tommy reads it. He's like, oh, okay, this is the plan. Okay, so it's important, but make sure you guys put your initials in there. Okay. All right, so side things, because we have about 10 minutes, some side notes. I want to talk about school districts, and we can talk about certain industries, and then questions that you guys have, maybe certain situations that you're like, hey, how would you handle this? Okay. So let's talk about school districts. Schools are great, guys. They're great. They just need one set up good. And you have to have an understanding with schools is the teachers really don't have time. I mean, Diana could talk. I mean, she was a teacher for 15 years about and when you are out of school, I mean, they get 15 minutes to eat lunch. Let's be honest. But every school, they have a plan period, right? So again, this goes back to that phone conversation when you're setting up that enrollment. make sure, it's our job to keep you guys in compliance, per section 125 guidelines. It's our goal to make sure we see everybody so nobody feels discriminated against, especially on those 2 benefits they're entitled to. But I understand teachers are busy. Their schedules are crazy, especially at the end of the year, blah, 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 blah. But it would be helpful if I knew when everybody's plan period is, because that would be a good time that we could see them. And then the other thing is I can send you a time slot sheet. If you want to go ahead and just have the teachers pick out their time slots when I get there, I can attach that to the email, and the teachers and the staff can just sign up. And if you can get good at that, you'll show up at your enrollment, and it might not be everybody, but you'll have a whole bunch more people that will actually have time slots. And if you just plant that seed, maybe the first year you don't have a ton that sign up, but if that's kind of like you get into that year after year after year, it'll get better and better. Okay. But not only that, with the plan year period, you want to have that conversation when you're booking it, because we were at a school and everybody's plan period was from like 2:30 to 3:30. Well, that's a problem, right? Because what ends up happening is you'll go at 8 a.m., not see anybody. Then 2:30, everybody walks in all at once. Well, that's a problem, right? So you want to have that conversation, work that out with whoever your contact person, because let's be honest, most schools don't just have us. They've been through this before. So even if if you don't have the ideas, just be like, if you don't mind me asking, I know, what other companies do you have here? Like, how do you do it with the teachers with health insurance, or AFLAC, or American Fidelity, or whoever it is? Okay. Like, how do you get to make sure that everybody has a designated time to see? And then they'll just tell you how they work it. And then you guys can kind of brainstorm the logistics of, again, the goal is to make sure you see everybody. Okay. You could just ask. Yeah.
It's also difficult, like you have to ask the person. So I've been those are just going to be difficult by anyone. You need to go in with an open.
Here, Diane's coming up so you guys can hear.
Adapt about seeing an in-service day as opposed to a school day. So either at the end of the year, I would recommend not at the end of the year. Beginning of the school year is better because you have people that change jobs over the summer. But even on an in-service day, you want to make sure that you at least get to talk to the faculty. So you want to be at their teacher meeting if they have that. Usually what an in-service day looks like is in the morning, they have a staff meeting. They're going through all their training, yada, yada, yada. And then later on, they have breakouts so that they're with their grade level or their curriculum area, or they have this training or something else. So people can come and see you. But again, you're going to want to set up that really good relationship with the bookkeeper, that they realize that they need to come and see you, that they have a time slot to sign up, and that you're going to have to go and find them. You cannot sit in the break room and expect them to come and see you. They will not do that. You need to have an information sheet. I have an information sheet that I put in everybody's mailboxes before either I can send that to my secretary, or I put it in there whenever I get there, and you guys are welcome to have that. But it literally is allowing them to sign up for those no cost benefits via email if they can't get to me in person. So then they can scan that to me. They can drop it to me like, hey, I don't have time, like with kids, I can't do this. They can fill it out while they're at recess duty or whatever, and then they can drop it off and they can get set up with it. And at the bottom, it asks about the questions like, do you already have life insurance? Do you already have cancer protection? Do you already have XSplit? Then you can give them a quote. Does it work all the time? No, but it's better than not seeing anybody. Okay. And the more you do it, the more often you go to that school, like she was saying, your face comes back. Every year I go back to that school, I have more and more people. With the time slot sign up, I started doing that. The first year you get 4 people. They don't really care. And the next year you have a bunch. And then the next year you have a bunch. I literally just at Dongola School, it's 3 hours from my house. Like it's all the way down past Cape, super, super far. I'm like, this is not going to go well. The last 2 years I've done it over Zoom. Like nobody really wants to do anything. I pull up my sign up sheet because it's live. They can sign in, right? I look at it, I'm like, I'm just going to cancel if there's nobody there. I'll do it virtually or whatever. No, I had 23 people sign up. So that's the 3rd year they want to come see. Okay, you're creating that relationship. It takes time. You have to be willing to be understanding. Like as soon as they sit down and say, I know you're crazy. Let me get right to it. Like, what do you teach? You have kiddos of your own. Rapport. if I can give you any kind of advice, if you have 5 or 10 minutes with those people, spend it on rapport. Because then you can get their birthday, you can find out what they're doing, and then you can send them off. David's seen me do that at schools. Why don't you go ahead and get your class? You got to pick them up from art or PE or whatever. Let me write this stuff down. You can come back at your lunchtime or after school, and I'll have it all written down for you. Then you can go through it again. Okay, I'm not spending any time talking about my products until later. I'm doing rapport for that 5 or 10 minutes. I have 5 minutes. That's what they'll say to you. I have 5 minutes. Because they really do. They have to pick up their kids. Red, yep. Yep. Red face, sweaty. They're running around. End of the school year, it's crazy town. So you get what you get. Spend that time on rapport. Find out when their birthdays are. Find out what their kids are doing. If you can, ask me these planner questions. Fine. If not, tell them to come back. And then you got it all written down. You've got all your goals or whatever you're gonna do. But just be flexible. Schools are tough timing wise, but there's such. If you can build a relationship, it's huge success. But you have to be personal and you have to make that effort. It's all about you.
And they all talk to each other too. I mean, everybody does it every business, right? So like if you make it enjoyable, you have a couple people that are like, no, like you really need to go talk to her or him or whoever. You get those cheerleaders, like it's gonna make it all the world of a difference. The other thing with schools, any house account, any accounts, we lost a couple people. But any accounts where you're there and it just is like off or like it's not, one thing when you wrap up that enrollment that you can do with that bookkeeper is just ask them, be like, is there a better time in this year that would be better to get a hold of everybody? Like don't just leave there being like, well, that enrollment didn't go well and like everybody was busy or they're out on jobs or like, schools, like this isn't the beginning of the year, it's not the middle or it's not the end of the year. So it's like, why is this enrollment in March? Like it makes no sense, and it didn't go well. At the end of that, before you leave, I would just like replan. And if you need to move that enrollment, guys, we can move enrollments to where it's better. Be like, hey, when do you guys do your big enrollments for health insurance? Is that at the beginning of the year or the end of the year? Or when do you typically do these benefits? Like how did it end up when we're coming in March? Well, I don't know. They just always came in March. Well, it doesn't seem like this is a good time period for your staff. So let's move it. Let's just go ahead, and if that's 5 months down the line, it's okay if it's 3 months down the line. Like you guys can do a change of enrollment, just have that conversation. And if you need to move it, just go ahead and get the change of enrollment paid, done. Go ahead and get a date, even if it's months out. Great. You already got it planned, with a date and everything, and you can make it better and better and better. But I will say, like at enrollments, anytime that I'm not like, it's not an easy flow, I'm not, in my mind, I'm like, how can I make this better? So I'm giving you guys some ideas, but take it and run with it. Like, hopefully we'll do this training again. And then you'll be like, well, I did this and I did this and, all these things, and we can help each other, because the better that we can make each asset, which every account that we have, guys, is an asset to this agency. And if we can maximize it, and we're making sure we see everybody, we have updated employee lists where, it's an enjoyable experience for everybody. We're going to see everybody, and those enrollments, like we're not going to leave that annual premium on the books. Okay. The other thing I want to go over, just real briefly, is the mid-years. Okay. If you guys see annual or mid-years, like guys, mid-years are equally, there's huge opportunity in mid-years. And I know, because like there's a lot of accounts that we manage, and it's easy once we get to mid-year to be like, oh, they only want me to come during the annual, or oh, that didn't go well on the annual, so I'm just gonna like ignore that one. But guys, reach out to your franchises especially during the mid-years, because you never know. Like if they have one employee that's new, go out and see that one employee, work on your rapport, either write that new employee or not, like whatever the case may be, but you're planting that seed of like a better relationship. And not only that, once you do that one time, now every mid-year, like, hey, all of a sudden they have 3 new employees, 5 new employees, 10 new employees. And you'll start seeing them not only the annual, but also the mid. Okay. So I want to make sure. And then that's, again, maximizing that enrollment. Okay. Anything else?
Should at least be reaching out. whether they enroll or not, but.
Yeah.
Or cancer diagnosis changes everything.
Okay, anything, Terry, you wanna add? Essays?
Is it cold there?
No, it's just.
Oh. I've got layers.
Yeah.
I'm an ogre.
Yeah.
Mine too. You want to be ready when you walk.
So Mallory brought up, also in your email sending out to enrollments is, not only the per section 125 guidelines again, but then just saying, reminding them about that employee list. So that's good. Okay, anything else? Tommy, you want to add anything?
Nope.
No? Okay. Well, we are right on time. Woo! It's 2:00. People, this never happens. All right. So, let's get back to finish planning our week. Essays, you got your essay one-on-ones. We have our one-on-ones scheduled over here. Hunter, you're first, right at 2:00. Mallory, you're at 2:15. Julia, you're at 2:30. 2:45 is Chris, and then 3:00 you're Tommy. Is you, Tommy? Okay.
Chris is not here, so if Chris doesn't show up by then we'll just bump to Tommy. They'll call. But routes, research, tax if you didn't get your 30, because I can tell you right now, Jeff's gonna look at that.
But get it for yourself. Who
Yes.
cares about Jeff? You want it for yourself.
Also do it for yourself, but don't be embarrassed. Oh, Jesus. Yes, Danielle, if you email me, I'll email you right back.
Do you want me to email it?
You can, or just email me and say, hey, can I have a copy of your email?
Oh, okay.
Because you just asked me for it, but if I get back to my desk, I'll forget. Because I'm special.
So I'm like, trying that.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I'll email you right.
She just
Thank
she
you.
said nobody's gonna be
No,
there.
thank you.
She apologized, she's like, oh, that's okay, because they put it there to cover book for us, because I hadn't gotten on the calendar. So I just gave her, she like 2 days. So it's just.
So, well, but, I'll take the information.
Got you guys back, whatever that
You
was.
just said that, I'm like, maybe I forgot. No, it was because I was like.
Yeah, I said, no, you can go, okay, we'll just make sure, so we might have to change whatever else you have. But no, yeah, so she called.
Yep,
She's
and
like,
I will send that out.
Congratulations. She asked me when she is, she might have called me, but.
Probably just record.
But no, if I had, we go to tax, I should have talked to her.
Yeah,
more.
you can always call her, click on.
And everything.